everybody, Zach here from Primrose Productions Music. Today is the video I'm sure you have all been waiting for. We are going to be shooting out the Yamaha Hs7s and the Adam T7Vs. I hear these monitors get talked about all the time when people are just starting out. They're both relatively inexpensive studio monitors. Each one will run you about $600 for a pair. So people that are starting out, that's usually within their budget, and they're always wondering, should I go with the Yamahas or should I go with the Adams? So that's what we're doing today. I got some examples I'm going to show you with mixes that were done on each individually, and we'll check those out. But first, if you are not yet subscribed, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. The more subscribers I get, the more YouTube pushes the videos, and the more people that I can help with content like this. So do me that favor, hit that button. Anyway, let's get into it. So basically what I did is I took one track. It's an old track. I was just remixing it. But I took an old track and I decided to remix it once on the Adams and once on the Yamahas. So I did the Adam mix first, but then I waited a full week. Didn't listen to the Adam mix at all after I did it. Just waited a full week. Then I did the Yamaha mix. And each mix, I gave myself about an hour, maybe hour 15 for the automation at the end of it. But yeah, it was about an hour time limit on each one. So how well can I mix a song on each set of monitors within an hour? Same song, same everything, instrumentation. Literally the only difference is I'm mixing one on the Adams and one on the Yamahas. These are both monitors that I own, obviously, and I use them both in day-to-day, but I really wanted to see what the differences were between the two monitors. So we're going to jump right into Pro Tools, and we're going to check out what the actual difference is between them. Let's go look at that. All right, so we're in Pro Tools. We have two versions of the track. We have the version that was mixed with the Yamaha Hs7s, and we have the version that was mixed with the Adam T7Vs. And as you can see, I'm listening on headphones. These are Sennheiser headphones. I forget the model number. It's they're like $50 or something like that. But the reason I'm listening on headphones now is because I wanted a third point of reference to hear both versions of the track outside of my normal studio monitors. And I think the reason for that would be obvious, because if I'm listening to both mixes on either set of monitors, what's going to happen is whichever set of monitors I'm listening to, the one that's going to sound right is going to be the one that I mixed on that set of monitors. So instead, we're listening on headphones, totally third-party reference, so I can hear both individually and really hear the differences in each mix. Then we also have a reference track down here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to listen through this reference track. I'm going to skip that in editing because I don't want a copyright claim, but if you want to listen to the reference track, it's Fever Pitch by Rainbow Kitten Surprise, and you can go listen to the track on pretty much any platform. But I used this against both tracks while mixing, and normally it's a good idea to use a reference track, but especially in this case, when I'm normally used to mixing on both sets of monitors during a mix, I'll switch back and forth to reference both to get the mix where I really want it. In this case, when I was only using one set of speakers for each one, it was really extra helpful to have the reference track so I could hear what a good mix sounds like on each set of speakers to compare to the mix that I was doing. So like I said, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to listen to this reference track, and we're going to skip that in the edit so you're not going to hear it. So I will see you in a second when we listen to the actual mixes. So I've never listened to that track before on headphones, these headphones, and I just noticed something really funny, actually. The bass guitar is actually out of tune in Fever Pitch. It's not out of tune, it's out of tune relative to everything else, so the bass is actually a little sharp compared to everything else in the song. So if anyone from Rainbow Kitten Surprise is watching this, you got to tune your bass better, man. Anyway, let's get on to the comparison. So we're going to start with the Yamaha up here. This is the Hs7s, and we're just going to play the track, and we're going to see what I hear. All right, sounds pretty much all right. Let's listen to the Adam version real quick. right, so first thing I'm noticing here is the Adam mix actually came out louder. I'm not sure why that happened, but it did. And the automation in the beginning is a little different. I clearly automated the crescendo a little bit more in the Yamaha mix than I did in the Adams mix. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're just going to drop the volume on the Adams mix just a hair, just so we're actually hearing the differences in the mixes and not just the difference in the overall volume, because generally speaking, louder is going to sound better to people. So let's try and get these at the same volume. Okay, so a couple things that I'm noticing. The Adam mix has a way more hyped high end, and that makes sense because the Yamahas are very bright in the highs and the Adams are not so much. They're a little darker in general. So clearly I bumped the highs up a little bit more in the Adam mix than I did in the Yamaha mix. And that's a big difference between the two speakers. But what I'm also noticing is, while the high end is lower in the Yamahas, you would think that that would make the low end louder. The low end isn't really louder in the Yamahas. But it's definitely not as tight as the low end in the Adam mix. And you might not hear this well if you're on listening on your computer speaker or your phone speaker or like crappy headphones, but the low end is significantly tighter in the Adam mix. If you're not already, I recommend listening on studio monitors or on good headphones. But yeah, like listen to the low end in the Yamaha mix here. The kick drum is coming through way more, which means I did push that up, but overall the low end is not any louder, but it feels like it's missing a lot of information, probably in the 100 to 250, 300 hertz range. Whereas the Adams, the low end sounds super tight all over. So that's a big difference there, is just the high end on the Adams is so loud. And again, that's the biggest difference between the two speakers, is the Adam has a better low end and the Yamahas have a better high end. And really the high end is just in general lower on the Adams. So it got boosted way, way more. And it's almost piercing in the high end with the Adams mix. And that's why you're going to generally want to mix on more than one set of speakers, because had I been using both speakers interchangeably like I normally would in a mix, I would have noticed how much that high end is cutting through. Because if you took the Adams mix and you put it through the Yamaha speakers, the high end would be way over the top, and I would know, hey, I need to back that high end down. So that's a big thing. But in general, overall, really, I think the Adams are sounding better than the Yamahas. Really, the only problem I'm hearing with the Adams mix is that the high end is too loud. But in terms of tightness, in terms of low end punch, in terms of a full mid-range, the Adams is really coming through, and the Yamahas is just lacking in a lot of areas. it just feels super loose. It feels like it's missing a lot in the mids there, which, you know, not ideal in most situations. So even against the reference mix, it's lacking a lot of mid-range, where the Adam excels at this. The Adam's mid-range and low end are so fantastic. So yeah, let's wrap up, I guess. So as you can see, both sets of monitors have serious differences. The Yamahas have a way more hyped high end, and they're kind of lacking a little bit in the mid-range and especially the low mids. But the Adams have a really tight low end, a really full mid-range. There's a lot of definition in the mid-range, which is really helpful, but it has a very lacking high end. So what we ended up with was the Adam mix I thought was overall tighter, but the high end was just way too high. And the Yamahas, it sounded pretty good, but it was lacking a lot of stuff in the mid-range, and the low end was lacking a little bit, and we ended up bumping up the kick drum a little too loud because couldn't hear it well because the low end response on the Yamahas isn't great. So which one is right for you? If I had to choose, if I could only get one set of monitors within this budget, I would definitely go with the Adam T7Vs. I think overall they are better sounding. The thing is, ideally in a studio situation, you're going to have multiple sets of monitors. You want to be able to check this track on multiple sound sources so you can hear the differences. Obviously, very different responses on these monitors. So being able to switch back and forth between the two on a single mix really helps you fill in all the gaps. Normally when I'm mixing, I start on the Adams, and then when I get towards the end to where I'm thinking it's pretty good, then I'll switch to the Yamahas and I'll do some last minute tweaking because I'll hear some things in the Yamahas that I don't hear on the Adams. Like in this case, I bumped the high end way too much with just the Adams. So had I switched to the Yamahas, I would have been able to bring that back down, give it an overall better mix. I understand that's not doable for everybody right away. If you only have money for one set of monitors, that's fine, but in that case, you should also pick up a good set of studio headphones because, again, headphones aren't ideal as far as I'm concerned, but at least it's something different with good sound quality that you can reference the track against. So mix on your monitors, then switch to the headphones and check out what you hear different and fix any problems you're hearing. Go back and forth a few times like that. But anyway, yeah, overall, definitely I think that the Adams sound overall better than the Yamahas. But let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe you prefer the Yamaha mix. I don't know. It's really personal preference overall. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found this helpful. And if you're looking to get your first set of studio monitors, I hope this helped you narrow down your decision. Thank you guys so much. I will see you in the next video.